My name is Mark Allen. I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside Columbus, Ohio. I've never been someone who believed in the paranormal. I'm not religious. I work in I like things I can explain. Servers, code, wiring, logical stuff. But none of that prepared me for what happened 3 years ago. Because none of that helps when you wake up and realize something unexplainable is inside your home. It started with a doll. My wife Karen is the type who loves antique stores and estate sale. Every weekend, she'd drag me to some dusty little shop full of old clocks and teak. Normally, I'd just nod along, fake a smile, and carry the bags. But on one Saturday in October, I remember it clearly, because the trees were turning and the whole town smelled like wet leaves. She came out of a store holding something that made my stomach twist. It was a doll, porcelain, about a foot tall, pale, cracked face, one eye slightly lower than the other, dressed in an old lace gown that looked like it belonged in a casket. The thing reeked of mildew. "Isn't she beautiful?" Karen said, holding it like it was a newborn. I laughed. "It looks like it crawled out of a horror movie." But she insisted. "It's from the 1920s. Handmade. Only $20. I didn't argue. I figured it would end up on a shelf and I'd never have to see it again. I was wrong. Karen put the doll in the guest room upstairs, right on the little bench near the window. We didn't use that room much except when her sister came over for the holidays. That night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to what sounded like soft tapping. At first, I thought it was tree branches against the siding, but when I got up to check, the sound wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the hallway. Tap, tap. I opened the guest room door. Empty. No lights on. No windows open. But the doll wasn't on the bench anymore. It was sitting upright, dead center on the guest bed, staring straight at the door. I assumed Karen moved it. Maybe she changed her mind about where to keep it. I didn't wake her. I just shook it off and went back to bed. But the next morning, when I mentioned it, Karen frowned. "I didn't touch it," she said. I hadn't. Over the next few days, weird things started happening. The light in the guest room would flicker randomly. I replaced the bulb twice. Same problem. Our dog, Max, a golden retriever who loved every square inch of our house, suddenly refused to go near the guest room. He'd whimper at the top of the stairs and back away, tail between his legs. Karen started having dreams. She'd wake up sweating, talking about a little girl with black eyes standing in the hallway. And then there were the scratches. 3 long, horizontal gouges above the guest room closet, high on the wall, near the ceiling, too high for either of us to reach without a stepladder. What the hell could have done this? I asked out loud, running my hand over them. Karen didn't answer. She just stared at the doll, which was back on the bench, looking completely undisturbed. We decided to call the police, not for a break-in, exactly, but to file a report. Maybe someone had gotten into the house and messed with us. It was a stretch, but it was the most logical explanation we had. 2 officers showed up, Officer Barnes and his partner, a younger guy named Fields. We walked them through everything. The lights, the dog, the scratching, and of course, the doll. Barnes raised an eyebrow. "You think the doll's doing this?" "Look, I know how it sounds," I said, "but we've never had issues like this until it showed up." The two exchanged looks, but to their credit, they took it seriously enough. When they saw the scratches and realized no one in the house could have reached the height easily, they agreed to take the doll as possible evidence. They photographed it, put it in an evidence bag, and drove off. I watched the cruiser disappear down the street and felt ... relief, like we could finally breathe again. But that feeling didn't last. At 7:13 a.m., the doorbell rang. I was in the kitchen pouring coffee. Karen was still upstairs. Max barked once and then went silent, which was strange, because he usually barked at anyone near the door. I opened it and froze. There, sitting perfectly centered on our front welcome mat, was the doll. Same crack in the cheek, same crooked eyes, same mildew-stained dress, no bag, no car, no footprints on the dew-covered porch. I called the police immediately. When I asked for Officer Barnes, the dispatcher said he wasn't on shift yet. I explained what happened. 20 minutes later, another officer arrived. This time, someone I didn't recognize. He looked confused when I showed him the doll. He made a call, then came back to me. "Sir, according to the station's log, the doll you're talking about is still sealed in the evidence room. Nobody's checked anything out, but it's right here," I said, pointing to the thing on the porch. He didn't know what to say. He left with the doll again, or a doll. I wasn't sure anymore. That night, Karen woke up screaming. She said something had grabbed her ankle, cold, bony fingers wrapping tight enough to leave a bruise. I turned on the lights. Nothing there, except Max, growling low at the bedroom closet. The next day, Karen found her favorite necklace twisted into a noose shape on her pillow. The thermostat kept changing by itself, dropping to 40 degrees in the middle of the night, then rising to 85 without warning. And always, we'd hear the tapping, sometimes from the guest room, sometimes from the walls, once from inside the bedroom closet. We tried everything. We saged the house. Karen contacted a local priest, who agreed to come and bless the place. He lasted 10 minutes before turning pale and saying, "Something here doesn't want me." I tried to sleep in the living room. The tapping followed me there, too. We started keeping all the lights on. Karen refused to stay home alone. Max developed a rash on his stomach and wouldn't eat. And worst of all, the doll kept reappearing. The police stopped answering our calls, said there was nothing further they could do. When we drove down to the station ourselves, they let us into the evidence room. The doll was still there, sealed, unopened, untouched. I turned to Karen. "Then what the hell is in our house?" On November 9th, we decided to leave. Karen packed a bag. I booked a hotel out of town. We just needed space. A night without cold spots and flickering lights. I ran upstairs to grab Max's food bowl and his leash. The guest room door was slightly ajar. The doll was on the floor, sitting cross-legged facing the window. Its arms had moved. One hand was pointing at the bed. The other was resting on something dark, something wet. I stepped closer. My stomach twisted. It was a dead bird, crushed, feathers soaked in blood, and in tiny, childlike writing across the wall above the bed, scratched into the paint. "You don't take me, I take you." We moved out the next day, sold the house for a loss, told the buyers nothing. I know, I feel guilty about it, but I had to protect my family. Karen and I don't talk about the doll anymore. We haven't seen it since, but sometimes, in the dead quiet around 3 a.m., I hear tapping, and I wonder if it's found someone else. I still don't know how that doll came back. I don't know how it moved, or how it knew things it shouldn't. But if you've ever owned something, a toy, a doll, even a piece of furniture, that felt off, like it was watching you, leave a comment below, because I need to know I'm not the only one. Make sure subscribe to our channel for interesting horror stories, which are full of suspense, and make you more scary, and make your nights scary.